Yeah. So very good afternoon and also good morning, good evening, because some of the participants are from the international centers. So it is very auspicious occasion for the meteorological community. Today the World Meteorological Day, 23rd March 2023. So this is the actually organization. As you know, the weather has no boundary and it is an integrated system. One planet, one atmosphere, one earth, one ocean. So that's why the weather is influencing one part wherever something is happening in other part also. So there is no boundary. So the organization like World Meteorological Organization, where they can integrate all this country and all this phenomena, and this came into existence. WMO, World Meteorological Organization, came into existence in 1950 actually on 23rd March this day. So after that, we have gone a long way. And actually, if you see the history of WMO Day, it is not actually the one in 1950. The International Meteorological Organization, it came into existence 1873. So that's why it is now we are completing 150 years. So that means it is a long way. WMO has passed through this thing and through this transition. That means technological development, and as a material service providers of the national med service, all these countries, they are integrating, they are imparting training, they are providing the observation, they are providing the standard how we should take the observation, material observation, also international collaboration. These are the mandates of WMO, and as a part of the national med services, IMD is also working sincerely in this regard in delivering the services to all these neighboring country as a mandate of WMO. So today we will be celebrating this World Meteorological Day on this auspicious occasion. The challenges are also very large because of the uncertainty, because of the climate changes. We are facing severe extreme weather, rise in frequency of extreme weather, rise in temperature, rise in your sea level rise, glacier melting, and also the ocean acidification. These are the area where we have to face all these things with challenges. And in addition to that, the sectoral application also, many sectors like agriculture, water, these are under stress, and we have to come long way. So but fortunate part of the thing is, at the same time, in this last 50 or 150 years, there have been significant development and technological improvement. Space-based observations, we have the network space-based observation, we have the supercomputer, we have the algorithm, now the AI, ML. So all these technology are in our place. But now this, considering the theme of this WMO Day, the future of weather, climate, and water across generations. So that means the challenges, how we'll use this technology, how we'll utilize this international collaboration as what WMO has established, and to fulfill the demand of the future generation. So this is a very right approach, considering our experience in the past and the now what we have already achieved. Now how we will address the future challenges for the future generation. So this is the theme of this today's celebration, and I welcome you all on behalf of IMD and Indian Society for this occasion. And we will be deliberating on many issues. Our experts are here to talk more about this theme, as well as also we will be yeah. And also today we have a very distinguished guest before us, and he will be also delivering the keynote talk. And I would like to introduce him, Dr. Ansu Sharma. Actually, he will be talking about later the disaster warnings door to door, building community resilience using technology and local action. So on this thing, fitting to the theme of our World Meteorological Day, he will be talking about on this topic. So to give a brief introduction about him, Dr. Anshu Sharma is a co-founder of Sustainable Environment and Ecological Development Society, that is called popularly SEEDS, an Indian humanitarian organization that received Government of India's Subhash Chandra Bose Apada Prabandhan Puraskar 2021 and the UN Sasakawa Award 2022. Over the last 28 years, Dr. Anshu Sharma has worked extensively on disaster risk and climate emergency issues, transforming the vulnerable into resilient and thriving communities. Dr. Anshu Sharma is trained as an urban planner from School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, with a PhD in Global Environmental Study from Kyoto University. He is known for his abundance of ideas and has a keen interest in system thinking, innovation, and capacity building within the humanitarian sector. A professional trainer, he has been a driving force behind SEED's frontline disaster training.
I went to Kyoto University.
So now I request our DGM sir, Dr. Mahotsav sir, to kindly felicitate the chief guest, Dr. Anshu Sharma. Yeah. May I now request our DGM sir M. Mahapatra sir and DG IMD and also PR to WMO so to deliver the thematic talk on this issue.
Good morning. Namaskar to all of you. Chief guest of this evening, Dr. Anshu Sharma, co-founder of SEEDS. Distinguished fellows and members of Indian Meteorological Society. Dr. Roof Kumar, President, Indian Meteorological Society. Distinguished members of the various National Council and Local Council of Indian Meteorological Society. The scientists and colleagues from various departments and organizations, including Minister of Earth Sciences. My dear friends and colleagues from India Meteorological Department, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I extend warm greetings and congratulations to all of you on this auspicious day, the World Meteorological Day, which is celebrated every year on 23rd of March. As all of us know that in 1873, some countries came together, established the International Meteorological Organization, IMO, and IMO gets converted in 1950 as World Meteorological Organizations. And since then, we commemorate this day as the World Meteorological Day. So this year, WMO is celebrating 150 years of its existence from 1873 to 2023. So therefore, once again, I congratulate all of you for being a part of the celebration of 150 years of WMO. If you look at India Meteorological Department, it came into existence in 1875. So therefore, India has progressed well along with the international initiatives. And we have been far ahead of many countries in the world with respect to the objective for which the organization is formed at national level and at international level. WMO has been a wing of United Nations and has been providing all the information with respect to weather, climate, water, not only in terms of the real-time information, but also about the climatological information to mitigate the whole types of weather, climate, and water-related hazards, and to provide the optimum service for socio-economic development of the society across the globe. At the same time, India Meteorological Department, in association with all the institutes within the Ministry of Earth Sciences and outside, and along with the academic and R&D institutes in the country, have worked together to establish ourselves as a leading center, a leading organization in the world. India Meteorology Department and meteorologists in the country has been playing the pivotal roles in the international arena for the service development, research and development, and also the capacity building in the region. We have been the regional centers in respect of the capacity building, in respect of the monitoring in terms of the satellites, or in respect of the service being provided with all types of observations taken with AWS, ARJ, and radars. We have been also regional centers to provide the severe weather guidance with respect to tropical cyclones, heavy rainfall, thunderstorms, strong winds, and the waves. We have been a part of the international community to minimize the losses. We have been a part of the support scheme introduced by World Meteorological Organizations for development of meteorology in the small island nations and also the developing and underdeveloped countries or least developed countries in the world. So today is the day to look into the past and find out what progress we have made and what progress we can in the future years. Considering the theme of this year, the future of weather, climate, and water across the generation, the theme is very appropriate when you consider the international discussions in terms of the COP, Conference of Parties 27, and coming of COP 28. All of us know that we have accepted the fact that there is climate change. And the climate change has three specific aspects. One is the science of climate change, and second one is adaptation, and third one is the mitigation of the climate change. But when you consider the science of climate change, we have got further three aspects. The first one is the detection of climate change. Second one is the attribution, and third one is the projection. As far as India Meteorological Department is concerned, it is the nodal agency of the country to provide a statement every year, the country statement about the detection of the climate change. And all of us will be happy, we should feel proud that India Meteorological Department has the data digital available from 1901 onwards, even if the data are even from 1700. We have got one of the oldest observatories in Chennai and Kolkata. Not only that, we have also done a lot of analysis and give the statement what is happening with respect to temperature, rainfall, extreme weather, and their impact on various aspects of socioeconomic behavior. And those statements are utilized at national level, state level, district level, and also globally to formulate the international assessment and hence the required adaptations and mitigations. All of you know that the Center for Climate Change and Research is established in Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology by Minister of Earth Sciences, which acts as a center to provide the projections and also carry out some kind of attribution studies. The study of attribution globally is very rare. But unless otherwise we attribute the change, we cannot say that it is because of the climate change. So therefore, there is scope for the scientific community, R&D community, various institutes, organizations across the globe, including especially in India, to work out the attributions, to prove, to provide a statement which is concrete, which can be utilized by the government of India to argue with other developed nations with respect to the impact of climate change and required mitigation aspects. At the same time, if you look at the projections, we have been projections for a long time, but for the first time, the Earth system model is being run by Minister of Earth Sciences at Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. The statement is being made by our center to the government of India, and also it is going to WM and IPCC. So we have been a part of the global initiative to develop the projections, various projections based on the various radiative forcing or concentration pathways. So what we find that the climate change, which has been faked in recent times, which has influenced the frequency of certain extreme weather events like heat waves increasing, cold waves decreasing, heavy rainfall events increasing, number of intense cyclones increasing over the Arabian Sea and remaining same over the Bay of Bengal. Total amount of rainfall though remains same, the distribution of rainfall during the monsoon season changing, and there is a dipolar behavior with increasing rainfall activity to Rajasthan and Saurashtra Kutch and decreasing rainfall activity to Bihar, Jharkhand, East UP, and northeastern states. So all this warrants us, a scientific community, to carry out the work to help the people at the grassroots level and various disaster communities to mitigate the ill impacts. I will congratulate our sister organizations, especially the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, and National Center for Meteorology Weather Forecasting, and Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services for their pivotal role in contributing to the growth of science of meteorology and its applications in all sectors. Not only that, I also congratulate all the institutes, organizations within the country, including many IITs, universities who have contributed relentlessly, continuing their research and development, building up the capacity through the students, researchers, PhD holders. And by that way, we have grown. And there is a promising future also for us to contribute to the international arena, not only in terms of science, but also its applications to mitigate the impact of climate change, especially on the disasters and also our socioeconomic life. I just want to mention that this year, not only this, but last year, 2022, considering this impact of climate change, United Nations organizations and World Meteorological Organizations came together to give a clarion call, to make a bold statement. And the statement is that early warning for all. So early warning for all is the target fixed by WMO and United Nations that by 2027, each and every person, each and every household should get the early warning across the globe. You will be happy to know that in 2019, India Meteorological Department gave a slogan, Har Har Mausam, Har Ghar Mausam. That means we plan to have the weather information by each household by 2025. And that information should be on demand and should be available as per the expectation of the individual. India Meteorology Department or all the sister organizations in Ministry of Earth Sciences are working together towards that direction. And I am sure with this collaborative effort, we will be able to generate that type of informations which can meet the requirement of each household and each individual. I just want to mention here that when you consider the early warning system, there are basic four pillars. The first and foremost pillar is the observations. The second pillar is the modeling. The third one is the forecasting and early warning, which is now the impact-based forecast and early warning communications, which goes for early warning and early actions. And the fourth one is the disseminations, early warning disseminations. The world has come up a long way with the introduction of Common Alert Protocol, with the introduction of social media, in addition to the conventional media and many other tools. We have come up with the global multi-hazard alert systems where India is a part of it and providing hazard information to across the globe. But there is scope. We have come up with the Common Alert Protocol introduced in the country with the help of NDMA and concerned state governments and the Ministry of Earth Sciences. But still, there is scope to improve further so that we can have a really common alert protocol where we will have multilingual informations, we will have the multi-targeted informations, we have information at any time, we will have information all channels, audio, video, etc. And also the information could be reaching to the all socially disadvantaged people like blinds, deafs, and dumbs, etc. But however, I am hopeful that on this auspicious day, we are working together to improve this early warning system, and I am sure it will improve and will reach out to each and every person in the last mile, whether it is the hilly terrains or whether it is the deep sea. And for that purpose, we have taken a lot of initiatives to reach out through space-based communication and also the communication in conventional and also some kind of traditional in nature. So I just want to mention here that forecast accuracy, if you just look at it, is improved by about 40% in recent 5 years compared to previous 5 years for all types of severe weather event. For example, cyclones or heat waves, it has recorded history. We have erased our history. The death due to cyclone, which was 300,000 in 1970 cyclone. Now, if you find that no country in Bay of Bengal Arabian Sea is experiencing the death more than 100 due to any landfalling cyclones. So therefore, we have not been able to reduce the losses in India, but also in all the countries in this part of the world. Similarly, if you consider heat waves, the number of deaths was 2,000 in 2015. We have reduced it only to 10s and 20s in recent years. It is possible because of the public-private partnership, be it cyclones or heat waves or cold waves, because of the public-private partnership, the collaborative approach of the concerned state government, central government, NGOs, and various sectors, which has resulted to mitigate all these type of disasters. But still there is scope to improve the reduction of death with respect to especially the lightning, thunderstorms, squalls, hailstorms. Recent one you have seen how the hailstorm has caused havoc across the country and the rainfall and the lightning. So there is scope therefore for minimizing the losses because of the small scale weather events like thunderstorms, hailstorm, squall, which has got a life period of about a few minutes or few hours, and also have the size of less than 1 kilometer to 10 kilometers. But with the augmentation and the plan by the Minister of Earth Sciences, headed by Secretary Dr. Ravichandran, we are going for augmenting our observational systems in terms of radars. At present, we have come up to 37 radars in the country. And if you just look at before 5 years back, it was only 24. And similarly, we have come up with number of AWS and ARG and plan whatever we have got. We'll have 62 radars planned. Perhaps 49 will be in place by 2025. So like that, also numerical weather prediction models we are planning to improve with the IITM initiative from existing 12-kilometer global models to the 6-kilometer global models. We are going for 3-kilometer WRF or mesoscale models to 1-kilometer sub-kilometer regional models. We are also going for nowcasting with the help of highly rapid refresh systems already introduced in India Meteorological Department. And also there is data assimilation with respect to lightning, radar, and all the data which was perhaps a dream 10 years back. So therefore, we have marched forward, and on this occasion, we can take in further place that we can march forward to meet the dreams of the common man and to minimize the losses and maximize their livelihood so that country becomes richer. Be it the farmers, it's doubling its farmers' income, or be it the fishermen increasing their fish output, or be it power sector or health sector, or it is hydrology, or it is environment sector. Everywhere our contribution has increased, and I am sure this contribution will further increase. And it has resulted in increasing the economy of the country. Taking an example, agriculture sector, there is a net gain about 30,000 crores because of the improved agricultural farming advisory issued by Minister of Earth Sciences in association with the Minister of Agriculture. A poor farmer in the urban, a poor farmer in non-irrigated area who is in a below poverty line economy, he is gaining 12,000 rupees if he is utilizing the agromet advisory services issued by IMD. So therefore, it promises us to expand our sectoral applications and contribute the gross domestic product of the country. So once again, I welcome Dr. Angshu Sharma, the well-known person not only in India, but worldwide, who has contributed a lot with his traditional knowledge, new initiative, not only through its organization, but his personal initiative to reach out to the last mile, to utilize the information developed by the early warning agency like IMD, and hence bring laurels to the country by achieving several awards. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best on this auspicious occasion.
Thank you very much, sir. So before we go for our keynote talk, so may I now request our Dr. Rup Kumar Kohli, sir, President IMS, to kindly address the audience. You're here. नहीं, अच्छा ऑनलाइन कर ये ब्लॉक कर दिया क्या? रूप कोहली कोहली आर कोहली होगा कुछ. He was there, but इन्होंने he there. सर व्हाट्सएप में बात हो ना अभी. Oh, अच्छा sir. Okay, there is a power failure at my end. Please proceed with the program.
Okay, so next.
Okay, so now we just will take his address letter. Now we'll request our guest kindly Dr. Anshu Sharma. Already I have introduced, and we are eager to hear from you, sir. So over to you now, please.
Thank you very much. Very good afternoon to all of you. Good morning or good evening to our online colleagues. Dr. Mahapatra, thank you so much for having me here. It is a great privilege. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Patnaik, and thank you all senior distinguished colleagues here. Dr. Patnaik has already introduced me, but I just also wanted to share that while I come from a science background, I used to have a teacher in college, Dr. Hiroyuki Kameda, who used to say that after many years of work, used to say that I used to be a scientist, but after I started working with people on the ground, I became an inspired scientist. So following my teachers in their footsteps, that's what I have been doing in my career, taking the science to the people, learning the science of the people from them, bringing that to us. And in that process, I try to be an inspired scientist. Today's theme is really relevant, and the conversation that I planned to have is also around an extension of the theme in taking disaster warnings door to door. Dr. Mahapatra mentioned IMD's slogan, Har Har Mausam, Ghar Ghar Mausam. And I think in that sense, it sets the targets very clearly for us. We are generating forecasts and warnings here, and we have the individual house where this needs to go and save lives and assets. The paths will be different. There will be many intermediaries on the way. There will be many aspects of science on the way and communications. But the target is very clear. This is where we need to be 2 years from now. Dr. Patnaik, can I have my slideshow on? So while my slideshow comes on, where I will be starting and which is a point of great inspiration, especially on a day like this, is the way how in the disaster warning space we have made huge strides in the last many years, but more so in the last 1 decade. And if we'll move to the opening slide, the next slide, please. What I really wanted to bring to our notice was the way our achievements, many of which Dr. Mahapatra just spoke about, have been recognized so extensively globally. The headlines here say that the UN praises India's efforts to minimize loss of life. The head of UNDRR, the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Office, lauds India's efforts and our zero casualty approach. And in their communique, the UN speaks about India Meteorological Department's almost pinpoint accuracy of early warnings that helped local authorities act and save lives. This almost pinpoint accuracy of warnings is something that seemed to be so difficult just a few years ago. And it seems like such a huge stride that has been made by this department and allied agencies. And this is from the context of Cyclone Fani 2019, and there was a similar very well marked and recognized accomplishment after Cyclone Philin a few years ago. And the then head of the UNDRR had very similarly even conferred an award to the Indian efforts in accurate warnings and delivery of these and action on the ground. Next, please. So while the warnings work so well, I think in the target that we are talking about, that we want to go from the forecast to the house, I'd like to speak about this woman. Her name is Satyavati. She is from a fishing slum in the city of Puri in Pentakota, one of the largest urban slums on the continent. And her statement when we speak of these incoming cyclones is that it is really useful to have a warning that there is going to be a cyclone in 3, 4, 5 days. But it would be so much more useful for me if I knew what this cyclone will do to my house, right? So every cyclone is unique. Every extreme weather event is unique. But then every family is also unique. Their house is unique. Their setting is unique. And this matching creates so many permutations and combinations which we will need to break down if we have to meet this target that we have set for ourselves for 2025. Next, please. So the few problem areas that we thought of over these years of work, where work has been going on and needs to be expedited, was one of the resolution of the hazard risk assessments. When we assess risk, if we look at uh, uh, the state, the district, and the city and village disaster management plans and the assessments that they carry very broad level assessments. But Satyavati asks us, "Mere ghar ko kya hoga?" Right? And that's a piece we need to bridge. The second piece we need to bridge is that the weather patterns are changing very drastically. And I remember, sir, in the last 20 years, initially when there were many incidences, there was a flooding in Mumbai. There was a flood in 2006 in Badmer in the hot deserts. And every time the headline used to say this was an unprecedented flood. It has never happened before, right? We've continued down that line. There is an unprecedented heat wave. This was an unprecedented February where we are sitting. It was the hottest February on record since 1901 when we started keeping record. But this term unprecedented has become very common. Almost every month we are seeing something unprecedented that is happening. And when it comes to the communities, since they don't grasp the science so well, they are running with their traditional wisdom and knowledge. For them, it is very difficult to absorb this unprecedented change. They are every time getting caught unprepared. And the third piece that we need to resolve is making this information easier for people to understand. So to give you an example, the top three kinds of warnings that people receive, we work a lot on floods. So if there is going to be a release of water in a river from upstream, the information comes in thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of cusecs of water that will be released. So 200,000 cusecs of water being released from an upstream dam, what does it mean to me for my village or my house is very difficult for people to understand. Or even if we talk about how many millimeters of rainfall, if it is going to be 200 of rainfall, or if there's a cyclone that is incoming with 180 kilometers per hour of wind speed that is packing, very difficult for individual. This जिस घर की हम बात कर रहे हैं, उस घर में रहने वाले परिवार के लिए it's very difficult to understand what it will mean for them. Next, please. And so, and now I'm looking at it from the perspective of disasters and how we manage them. India loses 1% of its housing stock every year to disasters. As a percentage, 1% may seem small, but India's 1% is huge. The number of people who are losing their houses every year is phenomenal. And the bulk of these houses are in the informal sector. They are unengineered houses, they are uninsured houses, and they are private houses. So they don't really make headlines. They don't come as a big dent on our GDP or our national losses, but under the radar, too many people are losing a lot every year repeatedly. And many of these are repeated every 5 years. There are families that report losing their houses every 5-6 years in states like Assam. So hazard warnings is one part, the disaster impact not being known is one part. And then the third puzzle that we need to solve is how do people respond? So when IMD issues a warning, what happens, between that warning and people taking action? There are a large number of central government agencies that kick in and state government agencies that kick in. There are aid agencies that kick in. There are communication channels that kick in. There are local volunteers and community organizations that kick in, and then action happens, right? The most visible action is when the police drives the force and they say we'll facilitate evacuation, and we take great pride that in a matter of 3 days we are able to evacuate 1 million people. That is phenomenal, and that has been praised. But there are nuances under that need improvement in how quickly we are able to get all of these agencies to work in tandem, and we'll come to that in a moment. Next, please. So now I'm going to change tracks to come back to the story of Cyclone Fani in Puri. And this is the OSDMA was doing an amazing job. We were there as a support group, and with somebody. With, Actually, it was a team from Microsoft that was providing tech support. A conversation was happening around how frustrating it is that we could have known these houses will get damaged and still they get damaged, right? We are able to get people out, but the houses are getting damaged. This was a time I had just read the book Blink by an author called Malcolm Gladwell. Blink talks about how, certain decisions are taken by the subconscious mind in a blink, and then you justify them with a lot of science and argument, right? So he gives an example right in the beginning that sometimes you walk into a doctor's clinic and even without running any tests, the doctor says, "Arey, aapko to takleef hai. Why are you taking something or not?" And you say, "How did he know? I didn't even say anything," right? They can make out. So that's his experience. And we were standing there and sharing that, if you look at a slum, you can literally make out in a blink which houses will survive a storm and which won't. you can actually make out more in a blink. You can make out how well-to-do a family is or how poorly off it is. You can make out in a blink, if you work that many years, you can make out in a blink which houses will have toilets inside and which won't. You can make out in a blink what kind of diseases would be rampant in this kind of a slum. So why can't we do something in advance to make these warnings work better for us instead of just doing a complete wide, broad brush evacuation? And that gave rise to the fact, okay, you can stand and see there, but what is it that you can see across the board at a very large scale? And literally, if you pull out your phone, we have all turned on the satellite images on our Google Maps or whatever map we use and seen our own houses. That's something we've all done, and we always wondered, Arey, the car standing in front is also visible. That's amazing, right? And you wonder which day it was and whether your car or your scooter is visible. But practically, in your pocket is the rooftop image of every single house in the country, actually in the world. And if you break it down architecturally, I come from that world. So if you start reading the rooftops, you can get proxy data. The rooftop is almost like a QR code for that house. You can make out. Can we go to the next slide, please? So you can make out buildings. That is what we call building detection in our models. You can make out the roof types. We call that roof type classification. Based on this, you can infer a lot about that building and the family inside. And through iterative cycles, you can do what we call hyperlocal risk assessment. Right. So the same warning of a cyclone, or it could be a heat wave, or it could be an earthquake, will have a different meaning for every individual house in that zone. With these risk scores, you can create a neighborhood or a city or a village health report, and you can get outputs in various forms. There could be a dashboard for a municipality or a district authority. There could be neighborhood or ward level reports that could be generated for councillors and the samitis that act at these levels. And based on these, there could be local community action. Students can come together, volunteers can come together, resident welfare associations and mohalla samitis can come together. And as with any machine learning cycle, every time you run it, the cycle learns, the system learns, and it improves. Every subsequent cycle gets better and more accurate. Next, please. So this is the first image. It's my favorite image. This is the first time we tried to do this. It is not a very clear, not a very high resolution image, but this is a slice of Pentacota, and we were trying to see how many types of houses or rooftops we can identify. We identified 13 manually sitting on a computer screen. You can identify plastic sheet roofs, you can identify thatch, you can identify tile roofs, you can identify corrugated sheet, you can identify double sloping, single sloping roofs, and so on. And as I said, if you try to treat each of these as literally a QR code, the roof can tell you what kind of a wall is there inside. It can tell you what kind of a foundation is there inside. If it's a thatch roof, it is a mud wall. It is probably a pure mud or a wattle and daub, a bamboo and mud wall, or a mud brick wall with mud mortar. It has a very shallow foundation. The roof will fly off in the winds and the rains will literally melt the walls, right? And we can keep inferring. Next, please. So the things that we can infer is we can infer what the hazard will do. And mind you, as the hazard changes, the risk scores can change and completely flip. So a thatch roof, which is very vulnerable to a cyclone, is actually one of the best roofs to be under in a heat wave because the roof breathes. And the problem that we are speaking about, heat waves, the problem we face now on indoor heat is that the houses become too hot and they don't ventilate. So the typology has to be read with the hazard. It has to be read with the exposure. These houses are right next to the water line. It has to be read with the vulnerability. What can we infer about the building itself, and probably even the family inside. So if it is a very dense settlement of very small rooftops, it's a slum. It's a low income settlement. If the house size is less than 15 square meters, there's very little chance that these houses have toilets inside, and so on. There's very little chance that there is insurance for this family inside. So that's the vulnerability, physical and social. And all of this put together gives us a risk profile of every individual building. Next, please. So this converts into a dashboard of this nature. You can run layers. You can see for different hazards what kind of risk profiles you get. Next, please. And this is something we're trying to run with the municipality in Gangtok right now for them to be able to do that. And so far, this has been done at various locations, tested for localized flooding, for heat waves, and for earthquake risks. Next, please. So that was the bridge, a science bridge that takes the forecast that we have into a hyper local, not only warning but a long-term risk assessment which can help us improve things. But with the same data, now when you go out to the field, these are community volunteers. These are, while we talk of the digital divide, every community has some young person who is motivated, who has a smartphone, who has a data pack, and can actually be a beautiful bridge between us and these last mile communities. So this image is, sorry, if you could stay there just for 1 minute in the previous image. That previous image was a heat wave warning. There is a volunteer who takes this kind of a map and goes literally lane to lane. And this image is not from very far away from here. It is from a slum near Mayur Vihar in East Delhi, where we are able to see and the heat wave warning comes obviously from here, and we say that it's a city-wide heat wave warning, but these two lanes are going to be hit the hardest in two terms. One is, on an average, the slum is about 6 degrees warmer than the rest of the city because it has no open spaces, it has no tree cover. On an average, a slum house which has a tin roof is about 6 to 7 degrees warmer than the outdoors. So there are houses where the indoor heat level, indoor temperatures go up to 45 degrees Celsius in the summer days. And who's indoors? It's infants, it's their mothers, it's people who are unwell, it's the aged people. There's nowhere outside. They can't step out of their house and find a shaded place. So these are volunteers who go and say that, okay, there is a heat wave in the city, but you are at particular risk. So either move out of here, or to move to a neighboring house which is cooler than yours, or to go to a shelter and take the following precautions, which could be health precautions, which could also be stay alert for certain signs, health signs on which you need to go to a doctor, because traditionally in our society, heat was always an outdoor problem. In my childhood, my mother used to say, don't go outdoors during the day. हमारे यहाँ बोलते हैं लू लग जाएगी, you catch the loo. Yeah, that's a heat stroke. In the last 5-7 years, we are seeing indoor heat as a huge problem, which is leading to heat stress, which has been quantified as a huge loss to our economy. But it is also an issue where we are not able to map it completely, but we are trying to see that there are apparently deaths that are happening because of indoor heat. The indoor temperature does not go down at night in many of these places. So next, please. Now we can move fast. So this is how we run this. This is how from the imagery we go to the cluster level information. Next, please. And this is how we see that while there are apex bodies, including the Met Department, there are these local bodies which will actually have to make this work on the ground. And that is where, we speak of cities, but it's the between the city and the people, there are a lot of people. The municipal ward is a very important place where this role is played. The neighborhood, the schools, and I'll talk a bit about schools, are the bridges to reach to this last mile house जो हमको घर घर वार्निंग लेके जाना है. Next, please. So this is how the map looks like. So if you take, this is part of Mayur Vihar in East Delhi, and this is the simulation of indoor heat in these buildings. And we arrive at this at the end of 3 years. We install data loggers. We put these data loggers that are measuring temperature and humidity, sometimes light. We measure every 15-minute interval. We measure it for days, and we try to corroborate that with the temperature outdoors. So there is a warning that we get, there is an outdoor measure that we get, and there is an indoor measure we get. And we also see whether the indoor cools down like the outdoor or not. And then you get these red spots, which are places where we believe people will suffer. Next, please. And so for the last 3 years, what we've been doing is talking to these people and figuring out what is it that they do themselves. There are always bright spots within these communities. There are some houses that are cool. There is one house which is growing, which has put a net on their rooftop, is growing a vine, and there is gourd, lauki, torei is growing, and that house is 7 degrees warmer, cooler than the neighboring house, right? So there are local measures. We don't have to look at only industrial measures, and then we talk to people on how they can make it work at a larger scale. Next, please. We work at local climatic zones, how the streets are very hot, what can be done to cool them down through these focus group discussions. Next, please. And on the top left, you will see these two children. So there was a campaign we ran for children to come out with innovations, innovative ideas. These two little kids, they realized they don't have a cooler or air conditioner at home, and they figured out that with their mother's help, if they make the curtain wet and they open the window a little bit, then the room is much cooler. And that was their innovation. There was another girl in the same neighborhood who saw an ice box in a shop that was keeping drinks cool in that, and she said this can probably keep our overhead tank cool. Overhead tanks heat up so badly, itna garam pani usme aata hai. So she made a packing of thermocol around her overhead tank, and in her house suddenly the water that was coming in the tap during the day was much cooler and more comfortable. So a series of things like that happen. Next, please. And this is the kind of advisories. They go out in different ways. We try to use the local radio. We talk to people. We do nukkad natas done by the local community volunteers. Next, please. So what happens is we get these local champions. They come out with different kinds of results. But what it also does is that it creates this momentum of local ownership of the interpretation of this Mahotsav. Next, please. In summary, we are narrow casting. We are creating actionable insights, not just giving the warning, but saying what action needs to be taken. And we are creating a local ecosystem where people are able to respond themselves. Next, please. There's three other things that I'd like to touch upon that happened on the way. One was on this journey, we came across this whole concept of silent disasters. In fact, there was a few years ago, there was a campaign by the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies on silent disasters. And there is a very, very interesting report which says that 91%, according to their data that they collect, 91% of the world's disasters go unreported. So if you take the MDAT credit data that we all use, Government of India uses, and you look at media reports and all, there are very small scale events that just go almost or completely unreported. The one that caught our attention was a winter storm in Changthang. That is the image in the middle, where no human being died, but this was the Pashmina. This is the Pashmina Valley, and their goats died in the tens of thousands, completely devastating the frugal economy that they have. And there was hardly any blip on this. So what this does is, and then there's various maps, etc., that we've been working on to figure out how this Ghar Ghar Mausam can help you capture the silent disasters which are going under the radar right now. Next, please. The second thing that happens is that the face of disasters is changing really fast. If you look at data just of the monsoons in the last 23 years, from 2001 we were looking, there is such a huge variation that is happening. If we looked at the unprecedented floods in Leh Ladakh, and then we started seeing how frequently they had been happening, there is a huge shift that is happening that we need to understand. Next, please. And the third piece that we look at is the complexity that is coming in of disasters. This is work that has been happening in Sikkim with the support of the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change and the Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority, looking at how a simple rainfall event not only leads to flooding, and that leads to a landslide, that leads to the formation of an artificial lake in the valley below, and there's a huge chain reaction that sets off. Global village every year is now seeing complexity in their disasters. Next, please. So I'll just take another few minutes only to run through some images on how we take this to communities and the people and how it works. This is from Bihar. We are trying to decode what 150,000 cusecs will mean for a village. Which house will go underwater at how many cusecs in how much of time. And so we install these kind of scales and we talk about these. Next, please. This was the first weather station. This is Leh after the 2010 floods. This was an automated weather station. It was really nice. We set it up in a school complex in a village called Sarthi, which is near the Varela Pass. There were no in Leh, sir. There are not many weather stations in Leh, Ladakh region. There was one run by the army. Data was sparse. We thought this will help, and it did. But I'll come back to this in a moment. Why this became too sophisticated and too expensive for a community level intervention. The next, please. The other parallel area where we were working was in Badmer, which had seen floods in 2006, which is also a very orthodox rural community where adolescent girls would not usually step out of their houses and communities. But here's a group with a local organization called Unnati, originally from Gujarat. But they came out and they ran a community radio program and a very simple methodology they use. So we make these curves on carbon emissions and temperature rise. They start from more than 30 years 50 years behind and they go up into the future. What they were doing was they were speaking to people who were more than 60 years old and they were making a graph of memories of incidences that happened. And it was so stark to see what a 70-year-old person sees in the environment and what a 20-year-old person sees. And that's institutional memory that is only in the minds of these people, and most youngsters don't listen to them much anymore. So that was a very telling experience that opened up conversations. Next, please. This is a climate school again in a village in Leh, talking about how their water flows, but how there's lesser water coming in the spring, which affects their early sowing. They only have 4 months, to get their harvest. Next, please. This is Uttarakhand Chamoli, and by this time we had realized that it will be much better if we switch to much lesser expensive manual weather stations for the schools, because it's not about generating data as much as learning, and being engaged. Next, please. So we calibrate, we also use digital data, but here are people, children in schools who are playing with tactile anemometers, wind vanes, rain gauges, and so on. Next, please. Some of these are toys to play with. Some of these are real instruments that we install in the schools that they work with. Next, please. And this is from Sikkim, where a school set up a weather lab like this. This is the project with the SSDMA and the MOEFCC. And then after a year of running it, they could hand it over to another school and they could tell them how to do it and get this to roll. Next, please. And this is the kind of weather watch that the school comes out with. So they look at today's weather and then they keep adding up and they will do a monthly average. And what this tells them is how averages hide the problem, right? The monthly average is looking good, but there were 2 really bad days that disrupted everything, which you can't see from averages. So it's that kind of a learning process. Next, please. This weather watch is put outside on the wall. Often we put it at the gate of a school where passerbys in the village can also see. And on a lighter note, there was a mother who walked up when we were doing this workshop in Sikkim, and she said, "Aapne kya musibat kar diya? You've created a problem for us." And I said, "What happened, ma'am?" She says, "It was raining. The school was to be closed. My 8-year-old son said, 'नहीं school तो जाना है. मैं नहीं जाऊंगा तो bulletin कौन निकालेगा? Who will bring out the weather watch if I don't go to school?' Because for that week he was responsible for it. Right? They do a rotational. So if you get weathermen and weatherwomen at this level, imagine how simple it will be to take Mausam literally ghar ghar. Next, please. That's the team. Next, please. They were handing it over to another school, and what we do with schools is we do these makhi machhar maps in the school campus, and they walk around and they identify spots where there are flies and mosquitoes. They identify kachra and water logging, and they make maps from this, and that tells them where certain localized hazards could be coming. And again in Delhi, we had to take a lot of permissions, but we got a drone pilot to come and fly a drone and then help them take some images from above, so they could see that wo makhi machhar problem is emerging from rooftops also. So I can't see my rooftop, but there is a water tank without a lid, or there is a pool forming in a broken pot or something. More to generate thinking, and mapping. So we talk of GIS, but in their brains, this is the GIS that they make. Next, please. And through this, they make school risk registers and they revisit them every season. Next, please. And they have conversations with the community around. This is again a village in Sikkim. Next, please. And through this, they make community risk registers. And on that graph, you are seeing the likelihood and the impact. And we start putting all of these things as likelihood and impact. And there is a whole story that emerges that people can now understand. Next, please. And if they understand it, then they start running these campaigns. This is a village mela. This is Magh Mela in Sikkim, in Jorthang, where they start having conversations that if it's my risk, what can I do? What commitment can I make? Of course, we'll wait for the government to do something. But so those are commitments on those little post-its that you see. Next, please. There are 20,000 people who come for this Mela over 2 days from across the state. That's the Secretary and Relief Commissioner at that time. This was pre-COVID from Sikkim, Tashi. And he watched this stall for a while and then he said, let me explain to people, I can use their local dialect. And he was standing and talking to them about the earthquake risk, the flood risk, and conversations happening. That's the senior most officer of disaster management in the state government talking to thousands of people in a village mela in the state. Next, please. And it's not just India. This is my last work slide. It's not just India. This is an image from Myanmar where we work, where that's a country that really uses a lot of information and advisories that you give out, sir. And after the 2008 cyclone Nargis, there was a huge movement there. And this piece of work that we do was mobile knowledge resource center. So little trucks that have been retrofitted and little boats that go in the Irrawaddy Delta area. Go to villages and talk to them. This is how things are changing. This is your role, in your resilience. That's my last slide. Next, please. We can close here. Thank you for that. But this is the story of how we can make this change. So literally next month, when you will be issuing heat wave warnings, sir, we will be in the streets. We will be breaking down those warnings to every slum, every cluster, every lane, and we will be talking to people on what they should be doing. So there might be a family which might be just making sattu in the morning and having it because you've given a heat wave warning for that day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really, thank you very much, sir, for very interesting and nice presentation. And not only that, how we can manage the complex disaster and how the impact of complex disaster can be translated.
Just want to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
two small comments.
Definitely, sir. We are
When I
inviting.
joined IMD in 1961, I was posted to hydrology section. So we had 180 observatories in Nepal. So the armed forces people were given that job और उनको 10 रुपए मिलते थे. तो umbrella देना था. Because I used to write in English, it was translated in Nepali by another person who was part of the hydrology section. उसने लिखा, उसका ट्रांसलेशन ऐसा हुआ कि जब बारिश हो तो अम्ब्रेला लेके जाओ. सो वहां पर रेनफॉल 0 आ रहा है. Because he was so sincere, he will say with the umbrella on the rain gauge. That's what I found. Your person says, I have my duty to go. That's what Nepalis would tell. मेरा duty है, मेरा umbrella लेके जाना है. Now, I stay in a place which is always 2 to 3 degrees cooler than the rest of them because we have thousands of trees there. And we have put something like 300 gamlas. We still sleep without fan, without air condition, with a blanket. That's all I want to say.
Very good. So it was very wonderful, sir. And
So
sir.
now let us have the questions and comments.
Yes. For this set, if
Floor is open for questions and comments.
May I, sir?
Yes, please.
I was asking what is your realization regarding the, India, where you have so much variability in socioeconomic condition of the population, including their housing structure. So what should be the best method? Is it the, government penetrating to more to the community, or the community based finance will be better to, or any kind of disasters? Yeah. So whether it is government or community, strengthening the community, financing them.
So how should we do it? Should we
Yeah,
do
I
question
can,
by
we can
question
take
or
the
should
questions
collect
first. Let us take 4 5
Absolutely.
questions. I will request all persons can introduce themselves while.
Yeah, I am
taking the
Dr.
questions.
R.K. Janamani. I work as scientist DG in the.
So
weather
please see
center.
the questions any in the
Chat box.
chat box also.
do you have any question?
Any other questions, please? Yes, please.
early warning is being don't take serious. But at the same time, we look at warning issues like Odisha or in any other country. So, can you have any can you have any such type of data that this can be modeled more scientific way because response of the
50% अलर्ट डाटा की खपत हो गई 5 GB मूव टू GB ऐसे हैं
the only question is that in your slide you have mentioned that this level from the heat in terms of like 1.8 to 0.3 this level will change in different risks or hazards. For example, in cyclone it will be
ब्रीफ करने के लिए क्वेश्चन लंबा नहीं होना चाहिए ब्रीफ होना चाहिए
Is it over? Your question is over?
Yes.
Next, anyone else? Any questions?
Ask question, please use mic. Otherwise, that online people.
Yeah, people.
Yeah, there is a online I can read. I would like to know one thing. Like most of the time, when there is high wind blows, earthquake. This is different thing, sir. Not relevant. Also. Is there any relevant to speaker? Then we should take.
Mahotsav, do you have any questions?
May
I have, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
sir, this is Pandey from. Sir, it is a very good lecture, very lucid, and it is really heartening to know that this kind of our information is going to the public and actions are being taken. And in the process of lecture, sir said that this rooftop measurements in satellite imageries can provide us the to understand the strength of the buildings, maybe in terms of vulnerability of the buildings. But sir, just I want to know how to understand then the strength of the building just by seeing the rooftop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mahotsav.
Good afternoon. Sir, I'm Bhan from India Meteorological Department. Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for the excellent talk. It was really enlightening for many of us here. Taking the weather and weather warnings to ghar ghar, in fact, within ghar also individuals, where impacts may be different for individuals. Somebody has to stay and back at the home, and maybe others are going out for their daily course. And as you gave some examples, SEED is doing an excellent job. But perhaps I may be wrong. Teaching ghar ghar may not be possible for the seeds. It may give a model how to go there. How to put that information generated on vulnerability, requirement of individual households maybe, in a system so that it reaches the intended audience through a system. Seeds would be doing a wonderful job in limited locations probably. I would be happy if you can cover the entire 140 million population of the country. But can you throw a light so that we start working on those directions for taking the weather warnings to each and every individuals and keep on taking across the generations as the theme sets? Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Sir, we can. Is there any question? Hand. Yeah. Epi Pandya, okay. That he has already asked. So any yes. Is there any? Yeah. That's sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Dr. Sharma for very good concept and the type of work they are doing is quite novel scientifically. But my question is that it may be easier to take warning ghar using our artificial intelligence and other concepts. But most important thing is to take action ghar, action door to door. That may be difficult because ultimately I feel that when strong cyclone is coming, the only method is to ask them to evacuate the place where sometimes force is taken, force has to be applied, government has to take very strong action, or they move to the nearby arrangement by the government. So what is the point in having this type of minute scientific observation door to door when the action will be same? Because you have to ask them to leave the place. That is my question.
So, I think, yeah, very brief.
Yeah, it's very small question only. Sir, my question is that as a service department, our job is not to start the action or to take the action. We just give the information for the action. So, to what extent we can go, sir, in your view, because whether you feel that we can reach up to each person, or there is up to a limit we can go, then there starts the society to act.
NGO,
Yeah.
community, yeah.
Community also.
Community.
Yes.
I think we have got fair number of questions. So I think, sir, over to you just to clarify some of the things.
Thank you, Dr. Patnaik, and thank you all so much for your comments and questions. Some of these are more of comments. I've got 7 questions with me. I hope I've captured all of them correctly. I think the first one was around variability. How do we capture variability, which is so diverse, especially in the terms of the communities that are there? So how do we identify and deal with the most vulnerable communities? I think this somewhere relates to the last question also, that is not exactly the job of a meteorological player. I think where we will, at least where I will try to lead this, is what kind of partnerships and seamless work needs to happen to protect these lives and assets on the ground. Some of the data that even the IMD is using is coming from other sources. You're looking at ISRO data and other data. ISRO itself can't, they may be original, that may be the origin of data, but then you add a lot of value by analyzing it and processing it. And then you pass it on. So it's a kind of a chain reaction that runs. And the last mile in the context that I've been able to see is the local government. And by local government, I mean the municipality of the city or the panchayat that is operating in a village. They are the ones, we may find a lot of challenges with them and gaps in how they operate. But if we look at the reality in which they operate, their life is also not very easy. The way the budgets move, the way the decisions are taken, the way, a lot of things are expected of them. So variability is huge. From this resolution, I think we are at some 30,000 feet. We can't deal with that variability. We will have to create. So in one of the early slides, and my apologies, I was going really fast, but I was speaking about the silos in which many of us operate, and those need to be made more streamlined. Obviously, we will not merge because every level has its own specialization, but there needs to be more streamlining. Panchayats in Assam or in Eastern UP needs to know what is the information coming to it, which originated from IMD, but it has been processed on the way, made understandable, and then what action can be taken. So that were my thoughts on the first one. And then we spoke about there were 2 parts to the next question about risk, which is a composite of hazard, vulnerability, and exposure, and response from government. And then you spoke about the case of Eastern UP and how we don't get the kind of response that we would expect or anticipate. And I would say I may not have very precise answers, but very often going and spending time in that community or that panchayat's office also opens our eyes to their reality. What is it that they are seeing? We expect that they are seeing something, but sometimes they don't see that, the way we have positioned it. So I think in this, the one more recent conversation that comes to my mind is, this is how there are some things that the Indian government is doing really right. Some of the missions around Swachhata that we've done, around open defecation, that the work that we have done. And now one of the more recent ones is Catch the Rain. It's a slogan, that the Indian government is pushing. Catch the rain. It's simple. It's it's nothing new. We have worked on it in the past on the ground for years. I've worked with so many organizations. We put aniket bunds. We've done micro watersheds. We've given it all kinds of technical names. When you say catch the rain, you said not a drop should go away. It starts from simple messaging, which is then broken down into simple steps, which then mobilizes people around it and makes it happen. So I would only say that I feel optimistic. I think there is hope in Eastern UP. I think we need to find a middle point, because we need to change a bit, and then we need to help the community groups to come up to that level to a bit. And so the other question you had was around the risk calibration 1.8 and 2.3 and how this will change. So this is a composite. It's on a scale, and it's a composite of about 30 odd indicators that feed into this. And obviously, this is not how it should go to a community group or a local authority also. It will need to be translated for them. But essentially, I think the first easy level that it does is it gives you the top 20% of the buildings that need immediate attention and the families that need immediate attention. We can keep refining it, but that's the first output that it gives. So if you're at level 4+, then that's where your attention needs to go. I think there was one online, you very briefly spoke about high winds and earthquakes. I think there are a lot of theories around linking. We don't have any scientific data. In fact, this earthquake that happened in Turkey also, there was a message that went around a lot about somebody who had seen other phenomenon astrologically, but so the science is still not there. But I think what's important is that there may be a time when you are having a high wind and there is something else that happens in earthquake. I think many years ago there was a debated instance. The Gazetteer mentions, and I forget the year, but in 1703 or at some point of time, there is a mention of an incident in Calcutta where in the middle of a cyclone there was an earthquake. It's just a mention. We couldn't trace any data on it. It does not even begin to imply that there is a correlation, but it is what we need to understand is there is a complexity in the disaster. You may have an earthquake when a flooding season is on, and that will be terrible. Not only because
state of Turkey, what is the correlation?
सर वो उन्होंने कुछ एस्ट्रोलॉजिकल देखा था, कुछ प्लानिटरी पोजीशन से उन्होंने किसी ने प्रेडिक्ट किया था, वो वाकई हो गया. वो प्रेडिक्ट तो रोज करते रहते हैं कोई ना कोई लोग, और उसका बहुत सोशल मीडिया पे बहुत चर्चा हुई थी. So what our takeaway is that there may be two hazards that may come at the same time, and that's the complexity we were talking about. In Japan, they were very prepared for the earthquake that happened. It was all right. They were not so well prepared for the tsunami that followed, and they were completely unprepared for the tsunami entering the nuclear power plant. So that's what I would take away from there. We then spoke about, there was one question about how can you get to the strength of the building from the rooftop. So for certain kinds of buildings, you can get proxy strengths. As I said, if it is a thatch roof, then in high probability it is an unengineered wall. There is a very high probability that it is a wall which is either a wattle and daub, a bamboo mud wall, or a wall that has blocks in mud mortar, and it is a house that has very shallow foundations. We don't have data on this. The closest data we have is, I think it's occasional paper number 5 of the Indian census that gives a distribution of typologies. And from architectural studies, we know that there is a correlation in the material of the roof and the design of the roof and the walls and the foundations. The moment it will become a concrete roof, it will be very difficult to know. There are well-built and not so well-built concrete buildings. It will be difficult, but till that, there are 4 or 5 grades that we can certainly do. Basic census data, and then architectural studies help us do that. Okay, Dr. Bhan asked about how to take this ghar ghar and to people, and of course neither SEES nor any organization, even a large government organization, cannot cover all of India and make that happen. The few pilots for us, sir, that seem to be going in the right direction are Gujarat, Sikkim, and Tamil Nadu. These are 3 state governments that have taken a huge interest in making sure that warnings go to individual families and action is taken upon them. And they're doing it in various ways. there's technology, and that is where we have had a good reception, because that's where the pilots will probably take off. And there are a number of initiatives that are happening. So the Department of Environment and Forest of Tamil Nadu government is running a major program to bring this kind of a matter up. And the Greater Chennai Municipal Corporation has taken it upon themselves to break down the city's action plan. They have a very recent climate action plan. They're trying to break it down to local levels and how that will work. There's a very recent flood. There were 2 very major flood incidences in the last 6 years. And a recent high-powered committee has just submitted its report a couple of days ago. And that's the direction where the state government is going. So if the states run it, this is a state subject. Land is a state subject on our constitution. If the states will run it, following them, the district plans will run it, and then the city and village plans will run it, then you will have the municipal wards taking the lead. That's the point where we want to be, because right at that corner is this individual house where we want to be. The sixth and the second last question came from Dr. Dash. It came online on again on this warning door to door, how the warning can go, but how will the action happen? And sir, you spoke about the fact that there may not be much point in doing this detailed analysis if eventually we have to evacuate everybody. And one of the things, and this is still an initial conversation, it is happening in the state of Orissa, is that the citation which I was mentioning earlier, right in the beginning from the UN, was that we are able to forecast days in advance, and we are able to evacuate 1 million people in a matter of 3 days. The question that this kind of an analysis asks is, do you really need to evacuate all the 1 million people in that entire swath? Because it is constantly telling us, and this one little image that I had used in the beginning, it is telling us that there are certain buildings and certain clusters which will get inundated, which will get damaged. There are certain clusters which will not get damaged. In these clusters are also certain cyclone shelters. And let me also tell you, in Pentagata and Puri, the official cyclone shelter is actually itself complicated because it is in the CRZ. But it has saved lives in every single cyclone. So these hypothetical boundaries are important to drive the laws, but there is
each house cannot be saved, because this has to go to a safety place.
It has to go. So,
because house will become almost like an island.
Absolutely, sir. So what we are trying to arrive at is, can you identify safe places which are right now at a
That's
very
what
broad
Odisha
level?
has done nicely.
तो अभी हम उनको नजदीक के शहर में लाते हैं, बट अगर हम पिछले 10 साल के साइक्लोन्स देखेंगे तो वी विल फाइंड वेरी सिक्योर पॉकेट्स व्हिच कैन बी स्टिल साइंटिफिकली स्टडीड, ratified, and the evacuation process can be made more efficient, the numbers can be reduced, and there can be more localized evacuation, is a direction in which this can go. It will of course have to be tested, and time will tell how well it worked. And the very last question I have is our limit. You asked about our limits to giving this information, but then society has to then eventually respond. And again, I would speak about so many bridges that are there in between. Not just formal NGOs, but there are so many community organizations at that end which stand just before the houses that we are and the families we are talking about. There are self-help groups. Then there are the wards that operate. There are counselors who are very proactive and do want to do something. They have little bits of funds with them. Then there are the assembly. So there is a chain. I think what we need to do better, and I hope in the coming times, even at my end, I'll be able to research this better when I meet you next. We need to do a very comprehensive stakeholder map of starting from ISRO, where the original data comes, to IMD, which turns that data into very useful information, to those who carry this information, to those who will translate it, so that it's locally understood, and then those who will go and actually give that information. And in between, there will be those who will add actionable insights. If this is what's going to happen, then what you should be doing, right? So no single agency, no matter how big, can do it. We will need to create these kind of networks and lines to make this happen. I know I certainly would not have answered all the questions to your complete satisfaction. It is not possible for me to do in this space, but I would be very, very keen and happy to have such opportunities. Dr. Mahapatra, if you allow those, this has been really useful, and we should engage. We should take this forward. I think the 2025 goal you have set, sir, is a very achievable goal. It's ambitious, very ambitious, but it's still achievable if we all work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your really nice talk and also the conversation.
Yeah.
It is very excellent. And we'll
So
be
that's why actually Dr. Anshu Sharma has been conferred with India's Subhash Chandra Bose Apda Prabandhan Puraskar 2021. And also you'll be happy to know that he has been conferred with Sasakawa Award 2022. Let us congratulate them.
So we have some items remaining. So before we go for the releasing function, so may I request now Dr. Rup Kumar Kuli sir, he is now in online, so to give his remark. Over to you, sir, Rup Kumar sir, President IMS.
Thank you, Dr. Patnaik. And first of all, my apologies for that missing my slot. Of course, these are the perils of dependence on technology. I'm very happy to join this important program. And at the outset, on behalf of the Indian Meteorological Society, I convey our warm greetings on the occasion of the World Meteorological Day, which highlights the importance of meteorology for the safety and well-being of a global society. And this also reminds us of the need to dedicate ourselves to the science of meteorology and the associated services and applications for the benefit of the society. And I thank and compliment Dr. Mahapatra, DGR, Permanent Representative of India with WMO, and the immediate past president of IMS for convening this joint IMS-IMD event to celebrate the World Meteorological Day, and with a very fascinating topical presentation on covering the last mile in delivering the meteorological services, as well as the release of some key publications. And it is my proud privilege to share my thoughts with you today on the World Meteorological Day, on the occasion, an occasion that celebrates the importance of meteorology in our lives. As we gather to mark this event, it is essential to recognize the pivotal role that the science of meteorology plays in safeguarding the environment, our health, and also our communities. And as you are already aware, this World Meteorological Day theme calls upon us to inspire and empower action now to ensure a better world for the future generations. And in fact, in recent years, we have seen devastating effects of hydrometeorological extremes, with some of them attributed to anthropogenic climate change. And we cannot afford to let the situation to exacerbate or even continue. Otherwise, the future generations will be the victims of our inaction now. And in fact, this World Meteorological Day, as already noted by Dr. Mahapatra and Dr. Patnaik earlier, is very special, not only because of the 150th anniversary of the International Meteorological Organization, which is the predecessor of WMO. It is also a milestone year for WMO with the 19th session of the World Meteorological Congress scheduled in a couple of months. And with the establishment of the IMO in 1873, the meteorological community has effectively demonstrated to the world the critical need for and immense benefits of international collaboration on all aspects of meteorology, encompassing observations, data, diagnostics, research, modeling, and prediction. And in fact, as also noted, this year is special for India too, in terms of the presidency of G20. And I'm also happy to note that IMD is just 2 years away from its own 150th anniversary, marking our long-standing leadership contributions to meteorology and the Indian society as well as the international cooperation. And I'm glad to note that many local chapters of the IMS are also holding special events in different parts of the country as we speak to mark the World Meteorological Day, making concerted efforts to communicate and raise public awareness about the importance of meteorology to the society. In this context, I would like to mention that there is an annual monsoon workshop for the monsoon of 2022, and also a national symposium on climate and health being organized by the Pune chapter of the IMS next week. We are also getting ready for our flagship event of TropMet 2023 to be held at Jaipur later this year, and more details will follow in due course. An important topic that I would like to bring to this August audience is about the monsoons. As we all know, India is blessed with two monsoons, the southwest and northeast, which affect the Indian people in every aspect of their lives. The importance of monsoon prediction for socio-economic applications was recognized quite early, but understanding its variability across a range of time and space scales and providing reliable predictions remains a challenge even today, despite many scientific and technological advances. Recognizing the urgent need for improving monsoon prediction and related information in a systematic and timely manner, the Government of India launched an ambitious and well-resourced research program called Monsoon Mission under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. A unique feature of the Monsoon Mission is that, though fully funded from national resources, it has supported a significant number of international groups. This has helped to create a win-win situation for the country to address its own priorities in collaboration with the international community, and the international community to gain access to the various financial and intellectual resources provided by India for some of the fundamental challenges in monsoon modeling, which have implications for model fidelity even in other parts of the world. We have seen some landmark events focused on the monsoons last year in the form of the 7th WMO International Workshop on the Monsoons, IWM-7, and the formal launch of the International Monsoons Project Office at IITM under an agreement with WMO approved by the Government of India. I will closely associated with both these events, including a preceding training workshop on subseasonal to seasonal prediction of the monsoons. I'm delighted that the special issue of Mahotsav, IMD's long-standing and reputed scientific journal, featuring papers based on IWM-7 presentations, is being released today, along with IMD's meteorological monograph on Northeast Monsoon, led by Dr. Rajivan, and IMD's annual report. This flurry of activity focusing on the monsoons is very encouraging, and as Professor C.P. Chang, who is also with us today, has once remarked, India has become the center of monsoon universe, and I hope India's leadership will help consolidate monsoon research around the world. It is not enough to simply monitor and predict weather and climate patterns. We must also build resilience to climate risks and adapt to the changing climate. We must make our communities more weather ready by investing in infrastructure that can withstand extreme weather events, developing early warning systems that can save lives, and educating our citizens about the risks of climate variability and change. At the same time, we must be climate smart by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and promoting sustainable practices that will help mitigate the worst effects of climate change. This means supporting renewable energy, promoting energy efficiency, and advocating policies that will reduce our carbon footprint. As we celebrate World Meteorological Day 2023, let us recommit ourselves to building a better, more sustainable future. Let us recognize the critical importance of meteorology in shaping our world and take the necessary steps to be more weather ready and climate smart. Together, we can create a more resilient and sustainable planet. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for highlighting how IMS is working closely with other organizations in popularizing the science. Also, the International Monsoon Project Office, as you mentioned, has also collaborated with IITM with hosting the IMW, International Workshop Monsoon. Thank you very much, sir. And we will also see how future collaboration with IMS, IMD, MOS institutions. Okay, so next we will go for our release of 3 publications as already mentioned. So we have a 1 minute video also, and that we will release, and simultaneously we have also hard copy. So first we have the video. So we have three publications. First, one.
Number one.
One. Yeah, start.
Very good.
Yes. So thank you very much. So now we'll request our chief guest editor, Professor C.P. Chang, who is online, who was the chief guest editor of the special issue of Mahotsav, to say a few words about the book. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to join this event, even though I'm not currently in India. It is really a very emotional event for me because I started organizing the IWM series since the third series, that was 2004. And at that time, it was held in Hangzhou, China. WMO receives a request from several member nations, National Meteorological Hydrological Services, that all those conferences should have some material that will be published so that people won't forget it after the meeting is over. And the first suggestion was there should be something online. So that was the first volume of the book, The Global Monsoon Systems. And it was published by WMO as a technical report of the Tropical Meteorological Research Program. After that, starting from the fourth IWM, that's the International Workshop on Monsoons, the first one was held in Beijing in 2008. The Singapore publishing company called World Scientific Publishing Company, which has a pretty large presence in India, started to support the WMO monsoon activity, and they took over the publication of the Global Monsoon System volume, and they published volume 2 in 2008. After 2008, actually, the actual publication was 2010 or something, 2 years after the workshop. And then followed by the next one, the workshop was held in Macau, Hong Kong in 2013, and then in Singapore in 2017. So far, we have published 5 volumes of this book, The Global Monsoon System, involving both research and forecast. The content always includes selected or invited presentations and reviews at the international workshop. And the book has become popular because we invite the leading experts worldwide to give reviews. So I have been told personally by many colleagues from universities they're adopting the book as textbooks or reference books. And WMO has always been distributing the Global Monsoon System book to member nations in the monsoon region. And we're very happy that after IWM 7 held in India, this tradition continues, and the Indian Meteorological Department encouraged the publication of volume 5 of this book as a special issue of your quarterly journal. And we were able to invite a number of past editors like Professor Bing Wang, Professor Dick Johnson, and Professor Ding Yihui from China, and so forth, continue to be involved in the as guest editors for this special volume. And we're very, I was very impressed with the efforts and the energy of our IMD colleagues. I think led by Dr. Paternak, getting this issue into production. It actually broke a record. Why is it? What record? It always took 2 years after the workshop for the book to be published. And this time it's only 1 year. So we never before were able to do that. So that was a great success. And we hope that the past international cooperation on monsoon research and forecast, both scientists and National Meteorological Hydrological Services members, forecaster community can continue. And now India is the leader. As Dr. Kumar mentioned, I think India now is the center of the universe for monsoon research and forecast and activities. So I hope India will continue the spirit, tradition of international cooperation and involving other countries in the monsoon region for the benefit of the mankind. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make this remark. And also thank you very much for allowing me to, even though I have stepped down as the monsoon committee chair, I served on it actually for almost 10 or 12 years, can't remember. And I was still asked to have an opportunity to make a small contribution in seeing this book published. And thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for your giving the valuable remarks. So now we'll invite Dr. M. Rajivan, sir, lead author of the MET monograph, to give his remarks.
Good evening to all of you. Professor Dr. Mohapatra, Dr. C.P. Chang, Dr. Rup Kumar, Dr. Patnaik, and all my IMD colleagues and IMS members. First of all, thank you, Dr. Mohapatra and DGIMD and MOES for releasing this MET monograph on Northeast monsoon. And as all of us know that we have 2 monsoons, and Southwest monsoon is well studied. We have plenty of papers, but Northeast monsoon, in contrast, we have not done much work. We know very little, and also, but Northeast monsoon is also very important. IMD has published their first forecasting manual on Northeast monsoon somewhere in 1980s by Srinivasan. Afterwards, not much work. Of course, plenty of research papers have come, but not very good compilation of all the results of Northeast monsoon. So we thought that we will do that kind of analysis and come out with a good publication on all the results of Northeast monsoon, where you can find everything what do you know about Northeast monsoon in one book. So this book covers has about this book has 8 chapters and covers all the aspects of northeast monsoon, starting from mean conditions, variability. Variability means including diurnal, intra-seasonal, so-called active break cycles, internal variability. The most important thing is the synaptic systems, which we know very little. We had an extensive analysis. So this book is not just a compilation of all the research papers. We have done extensive research, new research studies, and try to understand more. Then we have written the book. And also the most important thing is one chapter on exclusively on NWP, how these NWP, MOS, NWP, IMD, NWP models are performing for Northeast monsoon. We have done good verification analysis for Southwest, but not on Northeast monsoon, on many studies. So we have done an extensive analysis thanks to INSEE-MWF as well as IATM scientists. They have contributed these results. So this book written by 17 co-authors, and I'm very happy to lead this team. And I'd also once again thank you IMD for releasing this book. My second monograph on heat and cold waves also ready to be submitted. Probably by next week I'll submit to IMD and MOES for further consideration. So thank you, Dr. Mahotsav. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable comment. Thank you. And now, before we go, and now I request our DGM sir to kindly facilitate our key speaker, Dr. Ansu Sharma, with a token of thanks.
Honor to wear this.
So now I will request our Dr. R.K. Giri, Secretary IMS, kindly to give formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Patnaik, for giving me this opportunity to propose the vote of thanks on the occasion of the World Meteorological Day. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ansu Sharma ji, co-founder and director SEEDS, for highlighting us the risk-based analysis and community awareness and how the practical use of science basically. So thank you very much, sir, for your valuable presence and giving us time to highlighting us these things. And then I would like to thank our Director General and PRO India WMO, Dr. M. Mahapatra, for his inspiration and entire sincere effort and taking all care of organizing this event and highlighting the facts regarding this WMO Meteorological Day on this occasion. Thank you very much, sir. And we are really grateful to Dr. Kumar Kohli, President IMS and Director ISMPO, for his encouragement and establishing the importance of the World Meteorological Day and its contributions, and highlighting the importance of the early warning system and how we will utilize it for future generations and other factors. And the releasing of the monsoon, IWM 7 special issue of monsoon. Thank you very much, sir, for your contribution and remarks. And our sincere thanks and gratitude to all dignitaries, especially Chief Editor of Special Issue of Mahotsav, Dr. C.P. Chang, and our eminent colleagues, senior colleagues of IMS, especially Dr. Datta is here, and others who are joined virtually. Thank you all of them, and thank you for all our senior colleagues, Shri Bhan Saab and Janabani Saab, and my colleagues and other fellow colleagues, those who are present here and even joining virtually also, for their all supports and coordination to finalize this event. Thank you all, and Finally, I would like to thank Dr. Patnaik for his untiring effort and arranging this day in a very short span of time. Really, it was a very short time for us, but anyway, it was managed very well with the best wishes and coordination of all of you. Thank you all.
Thank you once again to all of you.
Happy WMO Day.
Happy WMO Day. And we like to have you sometime in future also, sir. Thank you.